Time now for the press review here on Live from Paris. It's time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines in the world's press. Solange Mougin is here with us for our press review. Hi there, Solange.
Hi.
And you're starting off with this big story, the indictment of executives at the Trump Organization, which, of course, is being widely discussed in the American press.
Yeah, and the New York Times says that Donald Trump himself has not been charged in this 15-year tax fraud scheme, but the criminal case does deliver a blow to his finances and his potential desire to run for office again. And this hits, the paper says, Trump where it hurts: his namesake organization, his empire, his baby of sorts. And also the Times tells us that there is still another broader ongoing investigation, one that Trump's CFO, who has been charged here, will likely be pressured to testify and cooperate with. Meanwhile, the New Yorker, it ponders if this will be the final straw for Donald Trump, that many Americans, quote, have a persistent fantasy of a Trump knockout punch. But Susan Glasser writes that this long-sought accountability moment may not, in the end, be a made-for-TV courtroom drama. But she says punishment of sorts for Trump has already come, as he was not reelected.
And I imagine the conservative press, and we know Trump himself, is saying this is a witch hunt.
Yeah, that is exactly what Trump said following the tax fraud and grand larceny charges of one of his top advisors. And the conservative magazine, The National Review, echoes this view, saying the case has, quote, the distinctly foul odor of selective prosecution, end quote. And it argues that the charges themselves are, quote unquote, puny in the grand scheme of things, and are narrowly targeting, quote-unquote, innocent employees in a Melvillian scenario where the prosecutors are Ahab and Donald Trump is Moby Dick.
Okay, interesting. Moving on to some other very rich men now, but this time plans to go up into space. And there's a space race currently underway among billionaires to blast off into space.
Yeah, and our rocket men are upping the ante in this current space race among billionaires to blast off into orbit, with Richard Branson announcing, as The Guardian tells us, that he's going into space 9 days earlier than Jeff Bezos. But it is Wally Funk, who's been offered a spot on Jeff Bezos' rocket that's making headlines. Not only does she have, in my opinion, one of the coolest names ever, she is a space trailblazer. This is a woman, The Atlantic tells us, who trained with John Glenn in the 1960s. At the time, he lasted 3 hours in an isolation capsule. She lasted 10 hours. But because of her gender, she wasn't part of NASA's space flights in the 1960s, and now she gets her first shot up in space. And at 82, that means she will be the oldest person looking down on us from above.
You're right. Great name, a great story too. Love that one. But, you know, the view from space, if and when they get there, in some areas is not going to be that pretty because there's, a lot of smoke, a lot of wildfires raging at the moment.
Yeah, and an image of that smoke that we can see from space, the wildfires in California, can be seen on The Guardian's front page today. It says that no place on the planet is safe from the extreme temperatures we've seen in Canada and the western U.S. and their subsequent wildfires. Even places like the core of the Arctic are at risk. Live Science tells us that the thickest part of the quote-unquote last ice area is disappearing. Last summer, 50% of the ice in this area north of Greenland shrank, which is a lot more than prior models had actually estimated and suggested.
Very worrying indeed. Now, another story, which perhaps hasn't been talked about a lot, is in Africa's last absolute monarchy, Eswatini, where protesters have been calling for democracy and the fall of the king there. Tell us more.
Yeah, this time people mean business. That is a direct quote from the editor-in-chief of Swazi News. He told this to the South African paper Mail and Guardian, saying that the population, the majority of which lives below the poverty line, have had it with their king, his government, and their extravagant lifestyles. And also, and this is a bit of a self-promotion moment here, France 24's site has some great in-depth articles about this. Our Observer's desk tells us through citizen footage from the streets that the situation in the tiny nation, formerly called Swaziland, is chaotic and intensifying, with the military using live bullets and tear gas, and there is also a total lockdown on communication. And as well, on our French site says, as does Swazi News, that rumors are flying that King Mswati III has fled the country. We still don't actually know his whereabouts, but the government says the king is still in the kingdom and in control.
Okay. I would totally back up those calls, by the way, to get on the Observer's articles. They're really interesting content. Meanwhile, we're sticking with royalty, but moving to the UK. And the British press has been very focused on one particular event, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that one particular event is the unveiling yesterday of a statue of Diana, Princess of Wales, in London. As we can see on a mashup of the British press, many British papers are running reviews of the inauguration and how it brought both her estranged sons to the event. Reunited for Diana is how Metro put it, or Princess and the Peace is how The Sun pegged it. But some papers are a little bit more snarky. The Daily Mail says the princes are together, but they are still so far apart, lamenting that allegedly they did not have a heart-to-heart. But back to Diana and the statue itself. It is also getting a thrashing. In an editorial in The Guardian, Jonathan Jones says it's an awkward, lifeless shrine that shamelessly plays up to mawkish Diana worship. And the Daily Star says that the statue has received a lot of criticism for Diana's clothes, for her outfit, with many saying that it is dated and an odd choice for a princess. But InStyle, the fashion site, well, they like it, saying it pays tribute to Diana's love of big belts. And the sculptor says that the outfit was meant to highlight an empowered era in Diana's life.
Okay, interesting. It seems that you can't get away with controversy around sculptures at the moment.
Or Princess Diana.
Right.
Thank
you so much for that press review, Solange Mougin here on France 24. And if you want to watch that again or other press reviews, just log on to our website, www.france24.com, and it's there under In the